Welcome to episode 197 of the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. This is Melisa Lieberman, and I am so excited. We are almost finished with 2024, and it's so fun to look ahead to the new year. And that's what we're going to be doing today. If you're listening to this in the real time or around the real time, we're thinking ahead to making 2025 the best year yet for you as an independent consultant or consulting boutique owner. And if you're listening to this at some point in the future, you can leverage this really at any point for yearly planning or even quarterly planning or monthly planning. So this is going to be your episode to help you to get your head in the space of thinking to what you want to build and making a plan around bringing that to life. Before we get started, I thought I would tell you a fun story on a personal note. So my dad is a cattle rancher. You might know that about me. I grew up on a multi-generational cattle ranch. My family homesteaded it from England in the 1800s. And so anyway, he goes on one business trip a year. He flies up to Canada, and I don't need to tell you all the details, but it's to buy some new stock, essentially. And so, anyway, as he was doing that on his annual trip, he decided to take my book with him. He's reading it, which for the most part has nothing to do with cattle ranching. I'm not exactly sure how these principles might apply to him, but he's an amazing, supportive dad and he wants to read what I've written. And I think he listens to this podcast sometimes as well as he's driving his tractor, which again, not exactly sure how the principles might translate, although they could. And but he just likes kind of learning what I'm doing. So anyway, he takes my book with him and he decides that he's going to read it as publicly as possible on the flight and when he's in a restaurant or whatever. So he's super proud of himself doing this promotion work for me. And I think it's so fun that he did that. But on his way home, he told me he was reading it on the plane. And the woman sitting next to him, I think it was two women coming back from a business trip, and they asked him about the book. And so he told them that it was terrible. He has the most dry sense of humor. He said, it's the most dry book I've ever listened to or read. It's really terrible. And then he sort of smiled in his way and laughed and said, no, actually, it's really excellent. I have to be honest, though, I'm only on chapter 3 and it's really excellent. And the other piece is I have to tell you that my daughter wrote it. And so anyway, they got really excited that they were meeting the author's father, which to me is really fascinating because I feel like I've talked with you before. It's so interesting trying to get your headspace into the fact that you're an author, right? So anyway, they were excited to hear that his daughter was the author and told him they were going to buy a book and read it because they are in consulting. And so he was so proud when he got home that he had sold 1 or 2 copies of my book. So I told him maybe I could hire him to just fly around the country next year reading the book on planes and see how many copies he could sell. I think that is definitely not a profitable way to promote a book, but it could be fun. So anyway, I thought that was really fun. On his one business trip of the year, he helped me sell a couple of books. Anyway, so now that we've got that underway, let's talk about the episode and the approach for today's topic. We're going to talk about bringing your business to life, the 5 steps to make 2025 your best year yet. Whether you've got a new business and you want to take it to the next level, or whether you're just now launching your business, wherever you're at, I'm going to share with you today those 5 steps to make your 2025 the best yet. Let's talk first through the agenda, and then we'll come back to diving into each of the steps. So from an agenda perspective, I'm going to walk you through each of these 5 steps in detail and share with you a few resources as we go along the way to help you put this into practice. And then at the end, I'll share with you 3 or 4 ways to put the episode into action. Of course, you want to put what we're talking about into action in your business, but I'll tell you a couple of other ways you can make 2025 your best yet. So with that, let me first tell you that the companion resource for this week's episode is the Consultant's Yearly Planning Guide. So you can go to my website, melisalieberman.com consultingbusiness.coach/plan and download the companion resource to this episode. It's the Consultant's Yearly Plan. You may have downloaded it in the past. I update it every year, so go ahead and go download a fresh copy if you already have one, or if you don't have one, you can go download it for the first time at melissalieberman.com/plan. So that's the companion to today's episode. And now we're going to go into each of these 5 steps. So I'll tell you what the 5 steps are now, and then we're going to dive into each one individually to help you put this episode today into action. The first of the 5 steps is to set your vision and goals. And I'll tell you what that means in more detail here in a minute. Then we're going to establish your baseline. Third, we're going to break down your plan. Fourth, we're going to anticipate obstacles. And fifth, we're going to set yourself up to follow through. Those last 2 steps, I find most consultants miss or don't approach in the most comprehensive way that they could. And therefore, they're not setting themselves up to have the best year yet. And so I want to make sure as we go through this that not only are you clear on what it might look like to set up your goals, establish your baseline, break down your plan, but also that you don't miss those last 2 steps that are really incredibly important to what you're doing. And like I said, most of the time we either completely overlook that or don't do it in a thorough way that I want to walk you through here today. So the point is, stay till the end and make sure that you don't miss those steps because they're really important. Okay, let's start diving into each step individually. So the first of the 5 steps is that you want to get clear on what your vision and goals are. And I've been talking with a lot of consultants about what their 2025 plans are. And so often I hear, well, I want to do what I did again last year, or I want to incrementally improve what I did last year, or I want to replace my corporate salary and compensation. That's my goal. And so I always challenge them. What do you want your business to look like in 5 years' time or 3 to 5 years' time? What is that big goal that you would love to have? And so often I hear, I would love to create $1 million business or a $500,000 business where I'm working 3 days a week on client delivery and 1 day a week on my business and have 3 days off in the week. I often hear I want to do more strategic work and get out of the weeds, out of the day-to-day, roll up your sleeve type of work. I want to, take on really more meaningful projects, more fulfilling projects. These are the types of things that I hear from consultants. I hear, I want to stay solo. I like to keep a simple business model where I'm only responsible for myself and where I'm landing really fulfilling work that I can deliver on my own without getting in the weeds. Or other times I hear, I want to build a team, a small team where I've got maybe not any employees, but I've got subcontractors that I can pull in and out when I want to, whether they're client facing or not. Whatever the ideal is for you, getting really clear about what that looks like. And the reason why I recommend zooming out 3 to 5 years from now, the reason why I recommend zooming out that far is because it gives you the ability to think about the future in a way that you're not bogged down as much by the practicalities of it. Really dream about what is it that you would love to have, even if it doesn't feel possible, even if it doesn't feel realistic. What do you want to work toward? And getting really clear about that vision and those set of goals that you want to set for yourself so that you're then able to use that as a way to start planning out this year. The other thing that's really important as you think about this is, why do you want this? For some of us, we have big financial goals that we want our business to contribute to achieving. For others of us, we want to have a work-life balance that we've never had in our professional life, and we're ready to have that now. For others of us, it's just that perhaps you don't need to accomplish a huge financial goal. Perhaps you've got some good work-life balance going on right now, but you just want to prove to yourself that you can do this, that whatever this big goal is that you want to set for yourself, let's say it's $1 million business, solo business. You just want to prove to yourself that you can do this. Or perhaps you want to create some kind of a legacy that eventually you could pass on to other consultants or your family in some way. Whatever it is, you want to be really clear about what that big picture is and then why you want it. When you're missing the reason why you want it, it can be so easy to start falling off the path as you start executing month over month. And the current state, the way your business looks right now, is really comfortable, for example, it might be. When you're lacking a compelling reason to want to bring that bigger goal to life, it can be really easy to let go of these dreams and to go back to what you're used to doing. And so that's why you want to get really clear about what it is you want in the next 3 to 5 years and why you want it, why it will matter to you when you're faced with difficult decisions or fear or doubt. Why will it matter for you to keep on going? So you want to set that big vision 3 to 5 years out. And then you want to break that down and decide, what are your goals for this coming year, for the next 12 months? And we've talked about two different ways of doing that here on the podcast. One is to go out, and this is in the book as well. I can't remember the chapter, maybe number 4, but go and you download the book, melisabook.com, and think about choosing one of these two ways of setting your goals. The first way of setting the goal is to go after that vision right now. Don't wait for 3 to 5 years. Go after it and make those changes that you need to make in your business, and give yourself 3 years to accomplish that 3 year vision. So you have 3 chances to hit it. You might fall very short this coming year, but you'll learn so much about what does it take to think from that place of accomplishing that vision. What does your business strategy need to look like in order to accomplish that vision? What are your habits and routines to accomplish that vision? So giving yourself 3 chances to go make it happen can be such a motivating way to do this for some of us. For others, it feels like such a stretch that sometimes it could be self-sabotaging. And so you want to think about, okay, if I'm going to break up my goal into that I want to accomplish in the next 3 years, and break it up into kind of 3 stages for yourself so that you have a really clear path to getting there. Whichever way you want to accomplish that, at the end of this step 1, which is setting your vision and goals, you're going to know, what do you want your business to look like in the next 3 to 5 years? And then what is your path to get there? It's either implementing and giving yourself 3 chances to get there, or it's incrementally breaking down that 3 year vision into 3 clear steps for you in the next 3 years to get where you want to go. Okay, so now that you have your big vision and goals, the next step is that we want to establish your baseline. So we want to know, what is your current business state? And listen, most of what I'm telling you today, you probably already know. You do this, you likely do this in some form or fashion with your clients, especially if you're doing any kind of strategy work or planning work or helping them build out plans for what it is they're wanting to accomplish. So in some ways, we're putting into practice what you do with your clients into your business. So the second piece here is you establishing a baseline for your own business. And why do we want to do this? We want to be really clear about where we are currently at. So often I work with consultants and they tell me things like, I only get business through word of mouth. I don't do anything to generate business and I feel out of control, as an example. Or perhaps you've got so much referral or business coming from your warm network. And so you're thinking to yourself, I don't really have a lead generation process or plan. And what I want to say to you, and what I say to consultants who tell me that, is you do have a plan and a process. Maybe not a plan, but you do have a process of generating leads. You just don't recognize what it is. And therefore, you don't operationalize it. That gives you an example of why you want to take this second step. Is so often we don't give ourselves credit for what is working. So often we don't give ourselves credit for what we are doing. So often we don't give ourselves credit for what we have even generated. And so therefore, when you start thinking about breaking your goals down into and operationalizing them, if you don't have a clear picture of where you're at right now, you're not giving yourself the right starting point. You might think you're 50 yards back from where you are right now compared to where you're actually at. And so we want to be clear about where you're actually at, where your current business state is, so that way you can build the plans from the right vantage point. So that's why we're doing this second step, which is establishing your baseline and getting really clear on your current state of your business. So the steps to do that are really brainstorming first and foremost, what's working and what's not working, being honest with yourself in a way that gives yourself credit and also identifies areas of opportunity. That's the first piece, is more qualitative, if you will. And the second piece of this is more quantitative, getting clear on the math of your business. I can't tell you how many consultants do not have this math. It's very, very common that you might not know, where do your leads come from? Where do your clients come from? Where did the clients come from? Where did the leads come from? How much time did you spend working on your business last year compared to working in your business? What was your effective rate for each of the services? So you might charge on an hourly basis or a daily basis. So you've probably got some better data as it relates to how much time did you spend delivering and what was that time worth per service type that you offer in your business. If you're at the place where you're charging based on projects or more of a fixed fee type of a project pricing, or you might be at a value-based pricing point in your business, wherever you're at, let's say it's one of those, project or fixed fee or value based, you want to know how much time did you spend delivering those services. Actually, you likely built that up when you were pricing it out and guessing what you might spend, but you want to know the actuals and then divide that by what you charge so that you know what your effective rate is for that service, so that you can decide what's more profitable, what's less profitable, where do you want to shift your pricing. So getting really clear on the math. Again, where did your leads come from? Where did your clients come from? How much time did you spend working on your business? What was your effective rate per service? If you've got other people supporting you, subcontractors, whether client facing or not client facing, what does your profitability look like? Asking yourself and getting really clear on the math of your business is really important as you establish this baseline. So we talked about you getting clear on the qualitative aspect of your business by answering what's working and what's not working. And then we talked about getting clear on the quantitative aspect of your business, that math. Now, you might be saying to yourself right now in response to the second step of, I'm not sure, I didn't track that data last year, I don't know. If that's the case, first of all, I'll tell you, you're not alone. So many consultants aren't tracking this type of math. So guess, just make an educated guess as best as you can so that you've got a baseline to work from moving forward. And then as we start thinking about breaking down and operationalizing this plan, make a note that you want to, one of the steps will be for you to put processes in place so that you do have this data in 2025. Another way to establish your baseline before we move on here is to go to icassessment.com, the two letters IC for independent consultant, assessment.com, and it'll walk you through a 14-point assessment to evaluate the health of your business. So go take that. Even if you've done it before, I would recommend taking that periodically. It's a great time of year to take it again right now. So that's the second step of our process, is for you to establish that baseline. So you're clear on the current state of your business. And now you've got a good understanding of the gaps, right? In step one, we talked about establishing the vision and the goals. And now in step two, we know what our baseline is. So we know where the gap is between the goals and the current state. And that helps to set you up for the third step of this process, which is breaking down your plan. This is where you're going to get clear on how you'll bring your goals to life. And I like to think about this in two buckets as well. All of our steps today have a few sub-steps. The sub-steps here for breaking down your plan. So this means taking your vision and the goals that you set against your vision and knowing where your current state is. And now we're going to break that down into a plan. And first, we're going to do that by figuring out the math of how we're going to bring that vision and the goals for next year to life. You want to be thinking about, okay, how am I going to achieve the revenue goal that I set? What services are you going to offer? What is the pricing that you'll propose for those services? How many of those services do you want to sell and implement? Maybe it's one at a time. Maybe it's multiple clients at a time. Getting really clear about what is the math of your business model to bring your goals and ultimately your vision to life. And then knowing that, then you're going to break that down into a business development formula. This is in chapter 9 of my book. Again, you can go download the book at melisabook.com. I've been warning you, I'm going to take the free version off, which I will do over the holidays. So if you haven't downloaded it yet, go download it or go buy a hard copy. Go buy a hard copy Right now, I think it's $24.99 on Amazon in the US. And this will help you to visually look at this and figure out what is your business development formula. So you want to be thinking about how many conversations you need to be having, whether those conversations come from networking or speaking or attending events, whatever way it is in your business that you generate conversations. At the end of the day, we create consulting business through conversations. And then from those conversations, how many leads do you need? What is your close rate? So that you can figure out how you're going to bring that revenue to life. Again, that's a whole nother topic. And go look at chapter 9 of the book, and that'll give you so much more detail on how to calculate that business development formula to bring your business model to life. But the message here for you is getting really clear about how you're going to reach the goals that you've set in a very mathematical way. If you don't set your goals, which is one mistake I often see consultants making, they're worried they don't know the right goal to set or they won't achieve the goal, so they skip this part. Hopefully this episode is inspiring you to not make that mistake in the coming year. And then the next mistake I made is that consultants don't go to this level of detail to figure out, okay, what do they need to do in order to make hitting that revenue goal inevitable. The other component here is that we want to capture the enablers for you to make that business development formula come to life and then ultimately hit your revenue goals. So for example, from a enabler perspective, you want to be thinking about who are the people you need to support you. Maybe you don't physically have enough time right now to do a lot of the business development work and deliver for your clients. Are there ways that you can leverage other resources in a non-client facing way to make it more efficient for you to get what you need to get done in your business? So think about who might those people be. It might be a bookkeeper, it might be an accountant, it might be someone who helps you with like a virtual assistant who helps you do more administrative tasks. Then think about your process. What are you doing to create the business development, those conversations that we were talking about? So you fulfill your business development formula and ultimately bring your business model to life. What are the processes you need to put in place? So, for example, it might be that you say to yourself, I am going to attend one industry event a month or a quarter, and I'm going to speak once a month or once a quarter, whatever your business needs to look like. And from there, your hypothesis would be between attending events and and let's just think about those in a loose way, right? It doesn't have to be an industry event where you're going to a conference once a month. It could be that you're attending some kind of an online forum or executive roundtable or something like that. So thinking about it really flexibly, it might be that you decide from a process perspective that attending an event and speaking once a month each will create the number of conversations you need to have, and those some percentage of those conversations create leads and some percentage of those leads create clients. And then thirdly, from an enabler perspective, as you're breaking down your plan, we're still in step 3 here, breaking down your plan. You want to be thinking about the technology that might support you. Last week or a couple weeks ago, we talked about one page CRM, just really helping you to create a very clear queue of what are the next set of activities with your network, your warm network, the people you want to meet. Maybe there are other technology tools that you want to put in place, like lettuce.co, where they just take over your bookkeeping, as an example. There may be others, like I use Fathom right now, which is a tool that captures video and transcripts and action items and makes all of those calls a lot more streamlined, the follow up from calls more streamlined. So, whatever it is for you, putting those enablers in place so that you've got a really good and efficient system set up for yourself. And then the last component of breaking down your plan is operationalizing it, looking at what you need to accomplish and then breaking it down into the habits and routines and projects that you know will need to happen in order to bring this work to life, in order to have the number of conversations you need to have, to create the leads you need, to create those ideal clients who are paying your rates that you've set, the pricing that you've established, and that you're excited to work with and feel fulfilled and energized about your business. So you want to be operationalizing what you've built out here in this plan. And that also means knowing what you're doing on a quarterly basis, a monthly basis, a weekly basis, a daily basis to keep the train moving. When again, you think about yourself as a client, always thinking about your business as one of the businesses, one of the clients on your client roster, so that you don't treat it as that second class citizen, if you will, or red-headed stepchild, whatever the terminology is. We don't want to treat it as something we do when we have time. We want to treat it as an equal to ourselves and our other clients as well. So that's the third step, is breaking down your plan so that you know exactly what your best guess is on how you're going to bring those goals to life and ultimately achieve the vision that you set for yourself and your business. Okay, let's move on now to step number 4, which is anticipating the obstacles. This is, again, where I often see consultants not thinking through thoroughly or even completely overlooking it. And we want to make sure that you don't do that, because this is a key critical component of setting your goals for next year. And that is anticipating the obstacles. There will be obstacles, I can assure you. And listen, if you set a vision, a set of goals, and a plan that comes to life without any obstacles, any hurdles, any setbacks, then you have set a goal and a vision that is too small. Simply put, it is too small. If everything just happens without any hiccups, the plan is too small. The vision is so much less than what you can accomplish. So, knowing that, let's anticipate that obstacles are going to happen. They are not a problem. They don't have to derail you entirely. We just want to know that they are going to happen, anticipate as many as we can, and put a plan in place right now and as you move forward, so that you're building a relationship with your goal and not letting disappointment or discouragement or frustration stand in your way of what it is that you want to accomplish with your business and your life. So here's how that can look for you when you think about what are the obstacles of your business. I like to break it down into 3 buckets. The first is strategy. What could be the potential strategy obstacles standing in your way? And I'm going to tell you what these buckets are, and then I'll come back to give you some examples. So the obstacles, I like to think about them in 3 buckets. The first is strategy. The second is tactical. What tactical obstacles could stand in my way? And the third are mental. You can't get away from this episode without some mindset here. So the third bucket is mental obstacles. So when we think about those 3 types of obstacles, then we want to think about, okay, what are all the potential strategic obstacles I might hit? What are all the potential tactical strategies I might hit? What are all the potential mental obstacles that I might hit? Sit down and brainstorm those out. Get really clear and just do a stream of consciousness. What are all the potential obstacles? And if you start second guessing these obstacles, I would just recommend to you, treat it like a brainstorming activity. Nothing is wrong. Nothing is the wrong answer here. Everything goes, and just write it all down. Get it out of your head, because those things that you might try to talk yourself out of are probably the ones that are the strongest subconscious obstacles that are standing in your way. So just treat this as a brainstorming activity, in the sense that you're writing things down and not editing as you go. So we've got these 3 buckets: the strategy, the tactical, the mental. And then we've got the obstacle list of each one of those, everything that fits into one of those categories. And then from there, you want to go back once you've got that list of all the potential obstacles, and you want to really figure out, what is my plan to overcome or avoid each one of these obstacles? It might be avoiding the obstacle. It might be minimizing the obstacle. It might be shortening the amount of time the obstacle is impacting you. Whatever it is, you want to be really thinking about, what is the plan for addressing each one of these obstacles. So let me give you some examples here. The first is on a strategic level. What might be your potential obstacle? It might be that your current pricing doesn't match up to the goals that you set, or to that business model you created in the last step. So the plan that you might put in place to overcome that obstacle would be to really get clear on how you're going to increase your pricing in Q1 of next year. And then another way to overcome that obstacle is to sell yourself first on whatever that price increase looks like or that pricing increase looks like. Then the next component of overcoming that obstacle might be improving your sales process so you can better understand the value of what you do in the client's eyes to better support the new pricing you'll start incorporating into your proposals. And then you might also ask and answer, what is what you do worth 2x or even 10x what that new pricing would look like? So those are some examples of, from a strategic perspective, if your concern is my current pricing doesn't match my goals, what 3 or 4, maybe 5 steps there I just gave you to overcome that obstacle. The second example, from a tactical perspective, you might be saying to yourself, one of my obstacles is I don't have enough time to balance working on my business with working in my business. A couple examples here to overcome that obstacle would be adding your business to your client roster, like we've been talking about today, and treating it the same as your other clients. You wouldn't blow off meetings with your external clients. You wouldn't delay and defer for weeks on end or days on end, weeks on end, sometimes months on end, the work that needs to happen for those clients. So treating your business the same as your clients on equal footing, not whatever's left over, so that you can create the time that you need to balance working on your business with working in your business. Another way to overcome that obstacle might be more intentional work mentally to shift into business owner thinking so that you think about your business as from a business owner's lens instead of more of a consultant's lens. You're not a consultant who has a business. You're a business owner who happens to also deliver the work that you sell. And putting in a routine on a weekly basis to shift from that old way of thinking into business overthinking, business owner thinking. I keep saying overthinking. We don't want to overthink. We want to do business owner thinking to help you overcome that obstacle of I don't have enough time to work on my business and in my business. And then the third example I'll share with you to bring this step to life here of anticipating obstacles on the mental side. You might be saying to yourself, I don't believe I can hit the goal that I set. Let's go back to step one, your vision and goals. Let's say that you set $1 million goal and right now you're at 250. One of your mental obstacles might be that you don't believe you're going to hit the goal. Even if you do it incrementally to 500K in the coming year, it may be likely that you don't believe you'll hit your goal. That is a mental obstacle. That's not just a fact. A lot of us think it's a fact. I just don't believe I'll hit the goal. That seems like you're just telling me what you're thinking. That is a mental model. That is a mental obstacle. When you think to yourself, I don't believe I'll hit the goal, you're not going to hit the goal. You want to think about what can you be doing to overcome that mental obstacle. It might look like setting aside time to develop a relationship, an ongoing relationship with your goals. I do this on a weekly basis, going back and reminding myself what my goal was. I can tell you, we've talked about this before. If you've listened to past episodes, it can be so easy to get amnesia about what our goals are and just kind of go back into operating as business as usual. Setting aside time on a weekly basis to develop relationships with those goals can be so incredibly important. Doing after action reviews where on a weekly basis, you've broken down your goal, let's say, into if you set a 500K goal, and then you know what that means on a quarterly basis of how much business you need to land, new business you need to land. And then you know what your pipeline needs to look like to support that. And you know what activities you need to do to create the pipeline that supports that goal. That's a kind of that waterfall effect. Then do a weekly after action review to say, okay, how am I tracking against all of that? Where am I missing the mark? What am I going to test next week or next month to adjust and set myself up to better hit those numbers? And then finally, on the mental side, let's say you don't believe you'll hit your goals. It's building confidence ahead of time through another strategy to overcome that obstacle would be to put a practice in place that you're building confidence ahead of time through some mental modeling. You can't wait to believe in the goal until after you hit it. You're never going to hit the goal if you are waiting for the goal to prove to you that it can be done. It's your job to believe ahead of time that you'll be able to hit that goal. It's your job to feel confident ahead of time that you'll hit the goal in order to bring the goal a lot to life. And so putting the processes in place in your business owner practice so that you can overcome and keep whittling away at this self doubt about being able to hit the goal. So that's the step 4, which is anticipating the obstacles from a strategic perspective, from a tactical perspective, and from a mental perspective, and really thoroughly vetting all of that out so that you aren't just going through the motions of setting goals and hoping they work, but truly putting the skin in the game in terms of what it is you're going to do to bring this goal to life, and knowing when obstacles get in your way, how you're going to overcome those. And then the 5th step here is setting yourself up to follow through. This is, you could say, some form of an obstacle, really, which is a lot of times we talk ourselves out of a goal when we hit the middle of Q1 and things aren't tracking the way we want it to. Or we hit the middle of the year and we realize, oh, that we're way off of what we thought we would be doing. Is so common to give up and think about, okay, let me just get through this year and try again next year. We don't want that to happen for you. And it might be happening for you on a yearly basis against your goals, but more likely it's happening on a weekly basis against your goals, where week over week, it's so easy to get distracted by and kind of bogged down by what we need to be doing and our to-do list and the ever-flowing tasks that go on to it and unanticipated client requests that come our way. And then week over week, we defer and delay and water down the work that we had put in place and the plans we had put in place in those first 4 steps. And we don't want that to happen for you this year. So you want to be thinking about a follow through plan that's really clear for yourself so that when the second guessing or the deferring or the doubt comes into play, that you can push through and follow through on the plans that you've made, to take advantage of this time that you put into creating a plan to set yourself up for success. And so what this looks like is, let's go back to those 3 categories: strategy, tactical, mental. When you think about following through on a strategic level, the work that we've done in those first 4 steps establish your strategy. And then you want to put the steps in place or operationalize that strategy by doing things like scheduling time in your calendar to reevaluate and adjust that strategy on a quarterly and monthly basis. That sets you up to follow through. Schedule a meeting with yourself. I like to schedule an executive board meeting with myself every quarter, every month. Who's on the executive board? Me. Me and all the different hats I wear in my business. But really intentionally setting that, and sometimes even making a deck for myself of, okay, this is what's going well. If I'm thinking about meeting with the board, for example, what would I be communicating to them? And just using that as a forcing function in a way, in a fun way, really, to reevaluate that strategy and have a good cadence of continuously implementing it, holding myself accountable, and evaluating it and readjusting it. So that can be one method to help you to follow through. Go schedule those executive board meetings with yourself once a quarter or once a month or both. And then tactically set yourself up to follow through. Calendar everything that you just put into place in steps 3 and steps 4, in the breaking down of your plan and in the obstacles, that the things you identified, those activities you identified to overcome the obstacles. Go calendar all of that. Keep track of it in a project tracking system for yourself so you know what it is that you're doing and you've got a really good line of sight and you don't have to recreate the wheel every time you sit down to work on your business. Set up some habit tracking where you can keep track of and even gamify what it is that you're doing so that you've got those data points next year to really more clearly evaluate where you're at in your business. Not even next year, every quarter and even every month, where you've got those data points that you can use to assess your baseline. And then finally, on the mental side, plan ahead. Know that your brain is geared toward keeping the status quo in place. That is its job. Its job is to talk you into keeping what you already have, even though it's not what you want. So Think about it from a mental perspective. How are you going to follow through when your brain starts second guessing? When you start experiencing fear and anxiety? When you start telling yourself you're not in the mood to do whatever and you'll do it tomorrow? When your brain tries to talk you out of putting these plans that you established in the first few steps into place and bringing them to life, as it will, how are you going to think differently so that you can keep going and keep moving ahead and maintain the momentum for yourself and keep that progress? The one way to do that is to ask yourself, put yourself in the headspace of the business owner who's already created $1 million or the $500,000, whatever it is for you. Ask yourself, how does that version of me think about this thing that I want to do that I'm trying to talk myself out of? Get a process, put a process in place for you. This is imperative that will help you to support following through on your plans, even when you don't want to, even when you don't think they'll work, even when you're second guessing yourself, so that you can keep the momentum and keep making progress, even though it's going to be messy and uncomfortable and sometimes feel like it's the wrong choice. No, that's your brain's job to keep you in the status quo and define and put these strategies in place so that you can keep going despite the adversity that you'll invariably hit along the way. All right, so that's the fifth step. Set yourself up to follow through. Okay, so now that we've gone over those 5 steps to make 2025 the best year yet in your consulting business, let's wrap up today's episode with the immediate next steps to help you put this episode into action. The immediate next steps are: number 1, be sure to go and download that independent consultant's yearly planning process. It is the perfect complement to today's episode and will help walk you through the process of taking the 5 steps we talked about today into a very specific granular level for you in your business. You can find that plan and download it for free at melissalieberman.com/plan. So that's the first step. The second step is you want to schedule some time over the next few weeks to put this process into place for you in your business. Let it be an iterative process. Let it be a process where you do a little bit of the planning and then reflect on it, do a little bit more. When we do things that are not so focused on checking off the box, but rather let our brain really marinate on what we're thinking about and what we're worried about or what we feel like is a huge stretch, and just be able to problem solve as you go to overcome any worries and concerns that you have, and give yourself some cycles to think about what you want 2025 to look like from the perspective of being the business owner, from the perspective of being the COO, from the perspective of being the consultant who delivers the work and everything in between. Really give yourself some time and some cycles to build out a plan using those 5 steps I shared with you to make it a plan that feels inspirational, that feels motivating, that feels like it's something that you can actually execute, and get that into place so that you can truly hit the ground running in 2025. And then finally, consider getting help to do so. This is what I do as a coach for consultants, is help you to put these types of plans in place so that you can achieve more than you thought might have ever been possible for you in your business. Whether you're just starting out and want a really strong foundation, or whether you've already been in business for a while and want to continue to grow and exceed the expectations for your own business financially, in terms of the level of fulfillment you feel with the client work you're doing, and for it to be a sustainable and enjoyable process along the way. So if that's something that you would like to consider, you can go to consultmelisa.com, find a time on my calendar, and then we'll meet and discuss your specifics and determine if coaching is a good fit. So you can find that at consultmelisa.com, and I will see you again next week. Take care. Thanks for joining me this week on the Grow Your Independent Consulting Business podcast. If you liked today's episode, I have 3 quick next steps for you. First, click subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to make sure you don't miss future episodes. Next, leave me a review in your podcast app so other independent consultants can find and benefit too. And finally, to put the ideas from today's episode into action, head over to melissalieberman.com for the show notes and more resources to help you grow your consulting practice from your first few projects into a full-fledged business. See you next week.